Good day, grade 12s. Today's poem is called Vultures. It's by a Nigerian poet named Chinua Achebe. He wrote about the breakdown of traditional African culture in the face of the European colonization in the 1800s. Let's get into it. Okay, guys, so getting into stanza 1 from the poem Vultures and reading down line 1 to 13. So in the grayness and drizzle of one despondent dawn, unstirred by harbingers of sunbreak, a vulture piercing high on broken bones of a dead tree. Nestled close to his mate, his smooth, bashed-in head, a pebble on a stem, rooted in a dump of gross feathers, inclined affectionately to hers. So what we have here, the title Vultures. We know vultures are birds of prey, African birds of prey. They are also scavenger birds. So in line 1, we've got the word grayness. So grayness is setting the tone of the poem, describing a sense of despair and gloom. In lines 2 and 3, you've got a form of alliteration, the harsh D consonant in the words drizzle, despondent, and dawn. Also in lines 2 and 3, you've got the words despondent, dawn. So here we've got another form of personification as dawn is given human ability, in this case to be despondent. The word harbingers. Harbingers is a form of a messenger, so it's also a one who foreshadows or forerunner of things to come, much like messengers. So they are uninterrupted in their quest for relaying or conveying a message. In line 4, you've got the word sunbreak. Sunbreak, here dawn is usually, we know, signifies new beginnings. So we're looking at the preceding imagery after line 4. Perching high on broken bones of a dead tree. So the words perching high, it's indicating a position of being high and perhaps a position of power or dominance, because when you are high, you are looking down on subjects. You are looking down, in this case, vultures are looking down on their prey. The words broken bones of a dead tree. In lines 5 and 6, we have imagery of these terms described as most violent death by the vultures. And we have a form of personification because a tree is seen as having bones. The word nestle in line 7 and 8, nestled close to his mate, is smooth. So line 7 and 8 tells us this is a form of contrast, so the figure of speech is a juxtaposition, where two things are being compared, usually two opposite types of things. So we note that the way in lines 1 to 6, previously, the description of death and destruction are portrayed, and of animals or birds, in this case, who eat the decaying corpses of others, compared to what is being described now in lines 7 and 8. They can also have a form of cozy-like or loving side to themselves towards their mates. The words in line 9, bashed in head, a pebble on a stem. The words over here tells us this is a form of a metaphor. A head is compared to a rock or a plant stem, and it's actually very violently described. In line 10 and 11, on a stem rooted in a dump of gross feathers. So over here we've got quite a disgusting description that is given to male vultures, and I've included a little picture of what the head of a male vulture would look like. And in lines 12 to 13, we've got another form of juxtaposition. Again, it's a contrast. So affectionately to hers, contrast of a caring natureless animal toward his mate, compared to how these birds are usually seen or known to be vicious and grossly described. And continuing with stanza 1, lines 13 to 21. Yesterday they picked the eyes of a swollen corpse in a waterlogged trench and ate the things in its bowel. Full gorge they chose their roost, keeping the hollowed remnant in easy range of cold telescopic eyes. So in lines 13 to 17, the poet is building upon the image of a creature that benefits and feeds off the demise of other living creatures. So we look at this disgusting imagery portrayed in the description, eating the decaying excrements of dead animals. In line 18, you've got the word gorge, and gorge is stuffing one until very full, so almost to the point of vomiting. The word roost. Roost is a place where birds usually settle to rest after they have had their fill. Lines 19 to 21. Note the description of their eyes, lacking of emotion, that see everything that is happening. They do not move too far away from their food source. In line 21, you've got the word telescopic. So here we've got an example of a metaphor. The word telescopic, a vulture's eyes are being compared to a far-seeing telescope. Moving along to stanza 2, where a woman is being discussed, and more specifically, love being personified as a woman. So reading along from stanza 2, lines 22 to 29, strange, indeed, how love in other ways so particular will pick a corner in that charnel house, tidy it and coil up there, perhaps even fall asleep, her face turned to the wall. So in line 22, the first word is strange. So the poet is setting the tone of thoughtfulness, of the inability of the poet to understand the fickleness meaning changing nature of love. In lines 23 and 24, you find that love is described as seemingly needing certain conditions to grow and thrive. And yet, love can also grow and thrive in circumstances where it seems impossible and amongst creatures or people who seem incapable of love. In line 26, the word charnel house, it is a place or building where bones of the dead were kept and bodies were burnt after being killed. It was known for its traumatic conditions. Yet love, it's being showed in our poem that love can even live in such a place. Line 27, love has the ability to take up residence and feel at home and able to stay in any condition. Line 28, the words fall asleep. So fall asleep, we know that we're usually at ease to be able to close our eyes and fall asleep. So here the poet is pointing out that love can withstand even the worst of conditions when in the environment. And here love is being personified as a woman, where the two words comes in, her face at the end of the line. In line 29, the words turned to the wall with an exclamation mark. So these words tell us that love is not seen, or the woman is not seen. And there's a saying that goes, ignorance is bliss. And what it means is that if you don't face up to the issue, you will not be faced with it. You will not have to deal with it, which obviously is a very cowardice way of looking at something. But this could be a means of coping, a means of survival. So we are finding out that she, the lady, or love as it happens, is ignoring the terrible conditions. Here we find that she is choosing to overlook the negativity in order to be happy. And moving along to stanza 3, and once again we find that our topic has shifted to a man, a commandant, and reading along lines 30 to 39. Thus the commandant at Balsan camp, going home for the day with fumes of human roast clinging rebelliously to his hairy nostrils, will stop at the wayside sweet shop and pick up a chocolate for his tender offspring, waiting at home for daddy's return. So just to give you some background information, Bergen-Belsen, or as it was known as Balsan, was a Nazi concentration camp in the north of Germany. So originally it was established as a prisoner of war camp in 1943, but it almost commonly associated with a concentration camp. From 1941 to 1945, almost 20,000 Soviet prisoners of war and further 50,000 inmates died there. Overcrowding, lack of food, and poor sanitary conditions caused outbreaks of typhus, tuberculosis, typhoid fever, and dysentery, leading to the deaths of more than 35,000 people in the first few months of 1945, shortly before and after the liberation. And some background information about our gentleman, our commandant. Joseph Kramer was tried for his crimes against humanity and hung for this on the 13th of December in 1945. So this camp was known for its horrendous treatment towards prisoners of war. So moving along, lines 33. So the words fumes of human roast. So because of the large number of deaths, many of the camps had charnel houses that burn the dead bodies. The smell of the bodies burning permeates everything and it never disappears. And further along, clinging rebelliously. So we have a figure of speech here. Fumes are personified as having the ability to cling onto things. Lines 35 to 39. We're looking at a contrast here. So we've got the image of this man as though he is some demonic man who has children who he actually spoils and loves and who are anxiously waiting for his arrival. So this is a form of juxtaposition. You've got from lines 30 to 34 the description of horrific conditions and a man so cruel and inhumane towards others being portrayed as a loving father that has the tenderness and gentleness of stopping at the shop to get some chocolates for his young kids. The word daddy, it is specifically written in a capital letter. So we look at the two titles, Commandant and Daddy, and the irony of the torturer compared to a loving father. And finally, moving to stanza 4, reading lines 40 to 50. Praise bounteous, providence if you will, that grants even an ogre a tiny glowworm, tenderness encapsulated in icy caverns of cruel heart, or else despair, for in the very germ of the kindred love is lodged the perpetuity of evil. So in stanza 4, it all comes together. In stanza 1, the discussion of the contrast of the two natures of a vulture. In stanza 2, the lady personified as love personified as a lady, and the conditions in which love can grow, the most horrid conditions. And stanza 3 about the commandant being a daddy as well as a very brutal torturer. So in stanza 4, it's as though the reader has got a choice to make, which is worse. So in line 40 to 41, it says, give thanks for God's blessings. It tells us praise the bounteous providence, if you will. In lines 42 to 46, here we've got a form of metaphor. The commandant is compared to an ogre, and God even gives a cruel monster like the commandant of Balsan a small touch of kindness, love, and humanity. But it is covered in the depth of his heart and cannot break free. His heart has a natural inclination towards cruelty. So for a brief moment, he can be gentle when it comes to his children, but overall, it shows that the commandant is a very cruel man. In line 47, the word germ could also be the smallest potential of something. Lines 46 to 50. So ending off the poem, this is a very chilling thought. The idea that a commandant views his softer side that he has for his offspring, his family, as a curse or germ. Our poet Achebe chooses by using the phrase perpetuity of evil, suggesting that evilness is enduring, everlasting. This leaves the poem on a very bleak note. So in summary and to recap, in stanza 1, a very long 22-line stanza, the use of a very descriptive style of words were used to describe vultures, and a very dull and lifeless tone was created. The poet described grayness and drizzle of one despondent dawn, and our vultures picked the eyes of a swollen corpse in a waterlogged trench. They ate disgusting food in order to survive, yet also had a gentle, loving, nurturous side when it came to their mates. In stanza 2, a much shorter stanza, the poet discusses a woman. Here we had love being personified as a woman and starts to contemplate how love can exist in such an evil-infested place, and a love is not affected by evil, as seen in the line of the poem, her face turned to the wall. So she chose to focus on positivity, not the negative, as she found herself in. Stanza 3 began with an ellipsis that linked the vultures of stanza 1 with the commandant of Balsan in stanza 3. And after a day of burning human bodies, this unattractive commandant still manages to show his love for his babies. The poem ended with the last stanza of 11 lines, wrapping and linking up the entire poem. It says in a contemplative tone and asks if we should thank God for the tiny speck of good we find in evil, or should we feel despair for the evil that will stay forever. So the underlying philosophical question of the poem that leaves it up to the reader to decide asks, should we rejoice at the presence of good in the least likely of places, or despair at the fact that it is the very presence of this speck of good that allows for the perpetuity or the continuation of evil? An alternate explanation is that love of kindred, love of kind, is interchangeably linked with the hatred of non-kin, or those that are not related. This poem reminded me of the situation or the philosophy of yin yang, and that the fact we all have good and evil inside of us, but it's what we focus on that will flourish and grow. I hope you enjoyed the poem as much as I did.